and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers hindering, excessive force, and vehicle searches, and is brought to us by ABC News 4's channel. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. On August 20th, 2020, Corporal Robert Barrino of the Somerville Police Department initiated a traffic stop on 42-year-old grandfather Timmy Miles after he drove away from his Somerville, South Carolina residence. Prior to the stop, Charleston police officers had intercepted a FedEx package containing marijuana that was sent to Mr. Miles' home, but addressed to an individual who did not live there, and, according to Mr. Miles, was not known to him or his family. As part of a narcotics surveillance operation, officers from the Somerville PD delivered the package to Mr. Miles' front porch, and at least 2 officers watched the package.
They all knew what was going on the moment that body camera footage surfaced. You know just like I know that this was never about a package. This was about sending a message. Timmy Miles, a 42-year-old grandfather, pulled out of his own driveway in Somerville, South Carolina, and right then,
from a wooded area behind Mr. Miles' home. At one point, the officers lost sight of the package, and when Mr. Miles drove away, Corporal Barrino pulled him over on the mistaken belief that he had picked up the package and put it in his vehicle. Corporal Barrino approached the vehicle, and the encounter that followed was captured on body camera.
You just I know what you picked up. I know what you picked up over there, okay?
What I picked up?
Yeah. Come on. Get out of the car.
No, I ain't getting out the car till y'all tell me what's going on.
What happened to Timmy Miles is just the surface wound. The deeper expose is about the machine that chewed up the one cop who tried to stop it. And we have to ask, why is it that the only officer in this story who faced real justice is the one who threw the punches? We all saw the violence. Corporal Robert Barrino grabs this innocent man by the throat, drags him from the seat, and delivers closed-fist strikes to his face, while another detective physically grabs Barrino's arm to make him stop. It's demonic to watch. But stay with me here, because we have to reframe something the elite media will never tell you. In this specific story, the man they fired, arrested, and sued isn't just the villain. He's the sacrificial lamb. They want you to look at Barrino as the bad apple, fire him, charge him with third-degree assault and battery, and close the file. But if you look deeper at the body cam, you realize Barrino was the only one on that scene who was visibly stopped by another officer. The rest of that unit? They stood there and watched a man get choked for having a back problem and refusing to jump on command. They didn't intervene. They didn't de-escalate.
Employed was excessive and constitutionally unreasonable. In the 2008 case of Cleary versus Green, the U.S. District Court in Maryland, which is also in the Fourth Circuit, held that an officer did not use excessive force in physically removing an individual from a vehicle when she was spun around and slammed against the vehicle several times. However, the court justified this decision by arguing that the officer ceased the use of force once the individual was in handcuffs, and that he did not punch or slap her, implying that such a use of force would be excessive. Additionally, in the 2020 case of Wilson versus Painter, the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia denied qualified immunity to an officer who delivered a single, closed-handed strike to the face of an individual who failed to comply with 4 orders.
When the dust settled, the state convicted Barrino and sentenced him to time served. But the other detectives, the ones who conducted the illegal search while Timmy screamed that he didn't consent, they're still out there. Barrino became the blackballed legend of this department, a man whose violence was so undeniable that the system had to drop the hammer on him just to maintain the illusion of accountability.
Secure his phone? So I could, do a search warrant on it. He did admit to using marijuana.
Oh, I did?
Hey, you know what? Just do the instant to arrest. We'll hand it over rather than tow it. This is stuff back behind here with this stuff, but he's got a corner cut and it smells like weed in there, so.
Yeah, he has a couple baggies in the front as well. Yeah, I'll get photos of him.
Yeah. We're going to charge them and release the car to mom.
Even though Mr. Miles explicitly and adamantly denied consent to search his vehicle, and the canine unit sniffed the vehicle and did not alert, after Mr. Miles admits to using marijuana for his back problems, the officers thoroughly search his vehicle, including the contents of notebooks, folders, and other containers, and do not find any illegal substances. As we have discussed in previous episodes of ATA, the Supreme Court held in the 1983 case of United States v. Place that a canine sniff does not constitute a quote-unquote.
But you have to look at the real documented events mixed with what we know about these stings. The package was still on the porch.
Grabs him around the neck, pulls him from his vehicle, and strikes him several times in the face. We will explore Corporal Barrino's use of force later in this episode, but first, it is necessary to discuss the legality of Mr. Miles's conduct in refusing to exit the vehicle. As we have mentioned previously here on ATA, courts have generally concluded that officers are not constitutionally required to
The canine unit sniffed the vehicle and didn't alert.
Driver, and that although the driver did not immediately comply with the officer's orders, he did not undertake any threatening or evasive movements. Now, while Corporal Barrino waited about 35 seconds before employing force and did not appear to block Mr. Miles' exit from the vehicle, he used more force than Officer Painter did, as he grabbed Mr. Miles by the throat and punched him twice instead of once. And given the fact that Mr. Miles did not resist physically, or even make any threatening or evasive movements, he would have a strong argument that Corporal Barrino used constitutionally excessive force against him.
Please, then I'm paying my taxes. What?
But you told me you wanted to
Well, can I get some medical treatment and
Yes.
ambulance?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
want to get my dog pregnant because I got punched real hard in my face. You know that's wrong. Come on, man. Come on.
They had nothing. Despite this, they kept Timmy in cuffs, rifled through his notebooks, his folders, and even his prescription bottles.
Did they notify you about sending EMS to the traffic stop?
Negative, sir.
Can we get one for black male, approximately 30, 35, complaining of head trauma? Nobody notified them, so they're coming now.
Y'all say the EMS were coming on.
They're coming. I confirmed it. They're coming now.
We're going to search this. And anything else?
Desperately hunting for a reason to justify breaking his body.
Required to inform citizens about the reasons they have been detained. And although Section 17-13-50 of the South Carolina Code makes it illegal under state law for an officer to, quote, refuse to answer a question relative to the reason for the arrest posed by a person who has been arrested, this statute does not apply to Terry stops. Additionally, officers typically have the discretion to require individuals to exit vehicles during traffic stops. And for this reason, an order to step out of a vehicle is typically considered lawful. While South Carolina's hindering statute, which can be found in Section 16-5-50 of the South Carolina Code, is limited to interference with arrests, under Section 16-1 of the Somerville Code of Ordinances, it is unlawful, quote, for any person to refuse to obey a lawful order of any officer of the police department for the town engaged in the discharge of official duties. However, if he was charged with violating this ordinance, Mr. Miles could attempt to defend himself by arguing that the order to exit the vehicle was not lawful because the underlying traffic stop was not based on.
The official separation of employment form states that Barrino's use of a closed fist was not justifiable and a violation of policy, which is absolutely true. But the files also show that Timmy was charged with intent to distribute, based on nothing, charges that were later dismissed.
To exit his vehicle, and in a 2021 case by the same name, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed the denial. In support of its decision, the district court noted that no more than 15 seconds elapsed between the first command to exit the vehicle and the punch, that the officer blocked the driver from exiting the vehicle by situating himself between the open door of the vehicle and the driver, and that although
the real corruption is how quickly the system circled the wagons to pretend that the problem was one violent man, rather than a ritualistic humiliation of a black grandfather by a state apparatus. They even told Timmy, as he sat there in pain,
Although it is difficult to determine whether Corporal Barrino had the reasonable suspicion necessary to detain Mr. Miles without knowing the specific details of what the surveillance officers saw and what they communicated to Corporal Barrino, given the fact that the package was still on Mr. Miles's front porch, he would have a legitimate argument that the traffic stop was not supported by reasonable suspicion, and that he accordingly could not be convicted of disobeying a lawful order for refusing to exit the vehicle.
The good news is that you're alive. That's not justice. That's a threat whispered by an unchecked institution. This connects to a much larger cultural moment. The moment of the scapegoat. We see it everywhere now. The powerful institutions commit the systemic sin, and when the public outrage becomes a boiling point, they offer up a single, often controversial figure for public execution. They gave us Robert Barrino on a silver platter. He was guilty of excessive force. We have the evidence in 4K. But by focusing every headline on him, they distracted us from the fact that the Somerville Police Department conducted a surveillance operation where they lost control of their evidence, made an illegal stop, and then searched a car without probable cause after the drug dog found nothing. The judge found Barrino guilty, and that gave the audience their everything makes sense now payoff. But it's a false resolution. They want you to think justice was served because one man was jailed, while the unconstitutional search and the prolonged detention by the silent officers who condoned it are swept away. You are meant to feel satisfied, so you stop asking who authorized the delivery of a package addressed to someone who didn't even live there. It never ends with a neat resolution, because the corruption is the system itself.
Was made to conduct a dog sniff without independent, reasonable, articulable suspicion of additional criminal activity. This situation is more complex than the typical traffic stop, as there are serious questions about the legality of the underlying stop and Mr. Miles's apparent arrest. And the issue is further complicated by the fact that the officers failed to request emergency medical services until after the sniff was completed, although they seem to be waiting for EMS to arrive before taking Mr. Miles into custody when the canine unit arrived. Still, Mr. Miles would potentially have an argument that his roadside seizure was unlawfully extended to allow for the canine to sniff his vehicle. Additionally, while the legal issues surrounding the dog sniff are murky, it is far more
due to what the court vaguely calls familial medical complications. Justice remains frozen. Meanwhile, Timmy Miles had to scream his rights from the pavement just to keep his dignity. The true elite in this story aren't in Hollywood. They are the institutional protectors who turn cops into monsters and then charge admission to the execution of the one they can't protect anymore. Barrino was willing to use that level of force because he knew the culture of his department would back him. And the moment it didn't, they didn't just fire him, they arrested him and sued him. They made an example out of him to protect the rest of the pack. The anger doesn't go away because the operation that started this nightmare was incompetence masked as narcotics enforcement. And that kind of incompetence is protected by qualified immunity every single day. What keeps them safe isn't the law, it's the silence of the men in the woods and the lies in the reports. If a man can be choked and punched over a box that was never in his car, and the only solution is to remove the puncher while promoting the culture that created him, have we lost the ability to tell the difference between justice and a ritual sacrifice?